No, not at all. I don't think there's such thing as a heavy favorite. I don't think it's the Chiefs in the AFC. I don't think it's the Eagles in the NFC. The teams are too good. This time of year, we get so seduced by what happened last year and what things are on paper that you got to have the foresight to know it's not going to go how you think. Did you think last year that the New York Giants are going to be in the second round of the playoffs? That the Seattle Seahawks with Geno Smith would be in the playoffs? No, it is not part of the conversation. You think, we know the teams on paper and who's going to be. We don't. Did you think the Packers wouldn't be in the playoffs? There's going to be a million things that happen that are unpredictable. And the most predictable thing is that teams don't go back-to-back to the Super Bowl. Just pay attention. It doesn't happen. So I get it. Howie Roseman this, Howie Roseman that, roster this, draft this. I love the Eagles. Of course, I think they're going to be in the playoffs. Heavy favorites? No. They could easily take a step back. They're going to play the first-place schedule. They're going to have everybody gunning for them. I just don't think that concept really exists. I can't think of a time in the last 5 years where it's like, well, it's them, and then there's a mile between everybody else. They're definitely going to be in the Super Bowl. It doesn't work out that way.
The Chiefs a couple of years ago, after they won the COVID year, remember they brought back all their starters. They're like, the Chiefs have 22 starters coming back, and they did. They actually went to the Super Bowl and then lost to the Buccaneers. That's the last team I can remember getting as much hype and buzz and assurance as the Eagles. I do feel like they're being talked about as the heavy favorites, and a lot of that is because of what they added. We mentioned DeAndre Swift earlier in the show, but when you bring back all those key players, including Darius Slay, and then you add Jalen Carter, which to a man was the best player in the NFL draft, and he just slipped because of legitimate off-the-field stuff. And this was Darius Slay, who's been watching Jalen Carter all summer long. I've been around a lot of great defensive tackles. Sue, Nada, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave. I'm trying to tell you, Jalen Carter is very, very dominant. He's very physical. He's quicker than what you think and stronger than how he looks. He looks like a baby rhino.
There's the nickname.
That's Slay.
Slay played with 4 potential Hall of Famers. And, you're talking about Sue and Haloti Ngata.
Haloti Ngata. That's how Jim Nantz says it. Haloti Ngata.
We've had a couple plays where Jalen Carter just absolutely dominates the opponent. I mean, 66 has no shot on this one, and that's from a rookie. So the good got great. The best in the NFC got better. I'm going to say they're the heavy favorite. And with the 49ers having Brock Purdy at quarterback, that's going to be a question mark. And it's not because Brock Purdy didn't get the job done. He's coming off a very major injury at the end of that season, which the Eagles dealt to him. Brock Purdy did not trip and fall over his shoelaces. Brock Purdy was knocked out of the game by the Eagles defensive line, which I think got better this offseason.
Yeah, and to your point, Kyle, you said there are no heavy favorites. I do think there are favorites. You don't have to, like you said, heavy.
Yeah.
We may not have, but I do think on paper, you look at this Philadelphia Eagles team, they are the favorite in the NFC, and they should be. Now, you can put stock into how much that actually means, because I think when you come back and you have a team that everybody's talking about to be a top of the entire conference and they're a shoo-in, I think now you're looking at other teams and, all right, they're the ones you put at the top and they have this huge target on their back, and that's what we're shooting for. So you look at the 49ers, you look at the Cowboys, the Seahawks, whoever you want to talk about, these teams are all looking at Philadelphia and saying, all right, well, if this is the standard week in and week out, if they're on our schedule and they're our upcoming opponent, they're going to get our absolute best shot. If I'm a wide receiver, I'm going into that game, I'm like, all right, I got Bradbury on one side, I got Slay on the other side. You guys are telling me they're the best? Well, I'm going to go out there and have my best performance against these guys to make sure on Monday and Tuesday, whoever's talking on TV, they're talking about me. I think that's the difference. You look at Philly last year, Aaron Schatz came on our show and he predicted Philly to be in the Super Bowl. He probably was the only person at that time predicting them. You're able to run through the season where you're not this team at the top. You kind of get a chance to surprise a few people. No one expected Jalen Hurts to have that type of year. Well, now when Hurts walks in and this Philly team walks in, everybody's showing up early to the game. You're giving the Bucs the middle finger because you know they're the absolute best and you want to beat them. So that's the challenge of repeating that next year where you're not surprising anybody. And to your point, your schedule's a little harder because you were the best in your division.
To Peter's point, I do think that the Eagles are considered the best from last season because of what happened in the NFC Championship. I just don't think that sell job, unlike the Eagles, they emerged the victors of the NFC because of a fluke thing that happened 3 minutes into a game that could have been an epic NFC title game. I just can't get beyond when I really compare Eagles, and I'm going to go with the 49ers here to battle against considering the Eagles the heavy favorites. When I look to a man, offense and offense, you cannot find, I think, a much better roster than a Christian McCaffrey, a George Kittle, a Brandon Ayuk, and a Deebo Samuel. And that wasn't even a quarterback that just came out of my mouth. I don't know if you can go 4 or 5 deep on the Eagles roster. We were like, wow, ooh, that's amazing. Those names are ridiculous. And for different reasons, too. These players offensively are so dynamic, being coached by one of the most dynamic offensive coaches in the NFL. And you're expecting their quarterback to just stand up, just stay up for 17 games this season, and you will be throwing to an electric offense. I think the 49ers they're the ones that take their eraser, and they take the word heavy out of that question because they were right there last year, and that's part of the
That's
argument.
true. You were bringing something up, Peter, about you have the Niners and the Eagles. They mentioned the Niners. Who's next?
Yeah.
Like, who's the next
Yeah.
favorite? Who is that team? You got your eye on somebody?
It's like you've got these two heavyweights, and I'll give you that. I actually think Trent Williams might be their best player on that offense, and yet I would take the Eagles' offensive line over the Niners' offensive line. So there's this battle, but the Cowboys.
I would say
Cowboys
I
won
would say
12 games
Cowboys.
in a row, 2 years in a row. 12 games in 2 years in a row. They just haven't come up in the playoffs. They lost to the Niners twice.
And yet 13 wins for the Vikings last season, and they can't get a sniff.
Same team, Cowboys and
Yep.
Vikings. I think one of the most intriguing, fascinating, reactive Week 1 upsets would be Philly at New England. Tom Brady's going to be honored that night. It's going to be Foxborough. Week 1 football is always weird. If we come in that day and it's like, wow, the Eagles lost to Mac Jones and the Pats, and Belichick gave them the rope-a-dope, that would be pretty incredible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. We'll talk about it that week, but I love that game.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Week 1, don't say the